We are on Ask Shirley. We're going to talk about some policy issues tonight. We have a special guest joining us, Bryson Johnson. He is the candidate for House District 21. So that is part of our Senate district. So that is going to be hopefully one of your representatives. And so he will be joining us tonight. Bryson, do you mind just introducing yourself and letting folks know who you are, what you're running for, all of that jazz?
Absolutely. So I'm Bryson Johnson. I am a cybersecurity engineer during the day, and for the past 20 years, I've actually taught martial arts. I'm a martial arts master.
Oh, wow.
And my beautiful wife of 24 years now.
Get it right. This is recorded.
I got to get it right. But yeah, for 24 years now, we've run a successful martial arts club where we've empowered people through martial arts and leadership. During COVID, we experienced great adversity, just like many of you. Anyway, I did what leaders do, and in order to maintain our staff, I actually went back to engineering. So I'm a busy guy now, but everything happens for a reason. You know,
absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason. I think given my exposure to the corporate world and also the business world, it really gave me the confidence to step up and to run. If you haven't noticed, it's a very polarizing time right now in our politics. And the catalyst for me was about 100 days ago, Charlie Kirk was killed. And it really was irrelevant what you thought of Charlie Kirk as a human being, or his platform. It was really irrelevant because to see in the aftermath people celebrating that, it was very disturbing, and it hit you. It hit you. It was very visceral. And around the same time, Irina Zarutska was killed on the subway.
Right here.
And, that's an evil. There's no doubt about that, but also in the aftermath. I think we have to step up and bring humanity back to our politics, because in our politics, we're held to a higher standard, or at least we should be. My mantra's been to lead as a lantern, right? Well, what does that mean? You lead as a lantern that guides, not a torch that burns. Too many torches are in our politics today.
Right.
I came across a study, and it just makes perfect sense, but I came across a study that took the American electorate and divided it into 7 groups. Mm-hmm. And there was the far right and far left, and that accounted for 14%. Right? Those are the people that kind of treat politics as a hobby. They really like, they kind of like being in the fight, Those are the people that would yell at you on Facebook. But those people aren't representative of the electorate,
right?
Like your neighbors, right? And they were 14% of the electorate. And the rest were 86%, and they called them the exhausted majority. Those people are a little more pragmatic, reasonable, but they're also exhausted. And I'm like, well, that totally represents what I feel. Right. And when I talk to my neighbors, when I talk to people throughout our district, that's how they feel also, is that our politics today is polarizing. It's alienating people. And we have a huge opportunity here, because we know that people are fleeing the Democrat Party, and they're not quite ready yet to make that full shift. They're becoming independents.
Right.
Because they've totally gotten alienated from the Democrat Party. So I think there's an opportunity to really make accessible conservative values, and to lead as that lantern, and to really stop the blame shifting, stop the polarization, the condemning of your neighbors, the villainizing of our neighbors.
Right.
I know we're going to talk about a lot of policy, but essentially that's a huge part of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think Reagan said he'd rather be your 90% friend than a 10% enemy. I think that's what I'm all about, right? Like, you'd rather have somebody out there talking, engaging, fighting for you, right? Who's a 90% friend. We're never going to agree with anybody,
right?
100%. But who's a 90% friend and advocate who's trying to get stuff done than somebody just who takes you for granted. So I think that's where with Sidney Batch and with Yalu, they play the same tune. I mean, it's progressive politics. It's entrenched politicians that think that they don't have to earn your vote. And so, together I was super excited that you're a Johnson as well. And I said, well, that's an opportunity for us to really get some name recognition out there. And as soon as I saw you, I said, we're probably on the same page,
Yeah. Yeah.
I could tell that you're a good person, and that that we would work well together.
Yeah, Wendy, she's one of our viewers tonight, and she said you're right on the spot with what you're saying in terms of, bringing humanity back, in terms of working where you can work together, and making that the focus. So often people are trying to push us with our differences, but when we look at our differences, it makes up such a small component of who we are and where we separate, that we're leaving, like you said, that 90% on the table, and we're fighting over that 10. And again, so these are real voters that we're talking to tonight, that are in agreement that it's time that we begin to look at what it looks like to get back to business and to get back to common sense and things that matter. I often joke with friends that one day I'm going to start a podcast called Back in the Days of Reason, because some of the things that you hear, when you add just a sprinkle of reason, it automatically doesn't make sense. And the person's like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Well, but when you take reason out of it, then anything can make sense. And I really feel that it's time for us to get back to those things that are reasonable, those things that are logical, those things that truly impact our communities for the better. And so when I was thinking of how do we get the message out to the people, I thought, you know what? Let's do policy nights where we come together and we talk about the policies. We talk about those things that are impacting people every single day. I remember during the presidential race, Kamala Harris had her message out there, and it was a message that didn't resonate with people because eggs were really on the table. Literally, eggs were at $10 and $8, and that's what you were complaining to your friends about. I just left the grocery store and I spent $200 and I have a half a plastic bag worth of groceries, because those were the real things happening. And so I didn't want to miss an opportunity to bring these policy issues before people, to talk to them about taxes, to talk about the economy, to talk about jobs. And I thought this was a great segment, having you with me, because you can also share on these issues as well. For taxes, I'm looking for something that's fair and responsible, but it has an approach to it that allows us to move from where we are to where we need to be. Tax policy, it should serve our families. It should not strain them. And that's what we see oftentimes when we look where, here in North Carolina, especially, we're fighting this horrible housing crisis. And you've got these families who have paid off their homes for decades now, and they're still paying all of these exorbitant taxes. There is a lot of fraud in our systems. And so some of these tax issues are actually resulting out of our irresponsible spending, and we're making it up on literally on the backs and the necks of the electorate, and that just shouldn't be. And so when we talk about, tax policies, I know taxes they're important. Okay, that's your bread and butter. That's how we keep our lights on in the city and our basic needs met. It's also how we have programs that support people who are vulnerable, who need help and assistance. But even again, in those programs, we found a lot of fraud, and we're seeing that nationwide. We're not special in that way. And in fact, we're a little bit better at holding it to toe than some other places. I know Minnesota comes to mind, California. So we do a better job of it, but there is still room for growth in terms of weeding out all of the fraud and wasteful spending. And my approach is audit first, tax second. Let's audit these programs that we're using. Make sure that the people who are on the rolls are people who should be there. People who are not, let's get them off. And then let's evaluate if a tax increase is even necessary, because I believe if we were to take that reserve, and we've seen this at the federal level with DOGE and the work that they did and all that they were able to recover, we would be able to do that same type of things and actually give these rebates and these refunds back to our citizens. They should not be overtaxed because we are having a hard time learning how to spend appropriately. So looking at, auditing and making sure that the fraud and the waste is gone, then examining whether or not a tax is necessary and at what level. Responsible income tax relief. Income tax wasn't always a thing. It became a thing after the war. It was a war effort pushed by Lincoln. And then after that, I think, it became a gravy train. it's time to kind of reevaluate the gravy train. We should not be having these pots of money set aside for pet projects and pork spending and all of that when at the expense of our constituents. So,
Can
go
I
ahead.
chime in on that?
Sure.
Yeah, so that was perfect. So I think there's a lot of talk now, a lot of debate, and I think it spans Republican and Democrat, independent. It really doesn't matter whether you're right or left, and it's data centers. We obviously know that data centers are important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the data centers of the past where you'd have 100 people working there. You might have a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, right? And so it's going to require tremendous power. It's going to require your water. So it's going to impact your local government. And so I don't think it's a Republican or Democrat platform. I think you need to look at the net benefit to the people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if they're putting a data center in Cary, we need to look at what the net benefit is. So in 2015, there was a bill that basically made it tax-free for the data center. Well, things are happening so quickly now that we need to revisit that and to see if we're going to still offer these tax incentives, right? Because just the other day, from the snow, Duke Energy and other outlets came forward and they said, you need to watch your electrical output. You need to watch,
Right.
turn the thermostat down, right? And so that just makes you think of the 70s, right? Where
Right.
you had these brownouts and everything. So I think when we already have a fragile base, right? We have a fragile infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at the impacts to the water supply, and we need to look at the impacts to electrical. Also, we need to look at who we're employing. Are we
Right.
outsourcing all these jobs, right? Or are we actually hiring people in the area to benefit the area? So I think ultimately it's going to take working with the federal government, because I know that Trump is pushing for many data centers,
Right.
right? Because we want to take on China. We want to take on the world in AI and be the leader in AI. So with that said, that's going to take a lot of AI data centers. However, we need to see what the federal government is going to bring to the table instead of us just offering incentives and not really getting the net benefit. So that's an example of we need to stop blaming Republican, blaming Democrat, and
Right.
just come to the table and try and find solutions for the people in our districts.
I smiled while you were talking because I said, this guy's peeked over in my notes here,
Oh,
because I was going to deal with that really kind of head on, because there's a community pushback in some of this, the data centers because of the impact on it in towns like Tarboro and Apex, specifically, and Apex is part of our district. Their concern is sustainability of the projects because of the amount of resources that it uses, and then even the noise issues that come with it. So you've got the noise tolerance, but then also upcoming bills increasing to kind of sustain this. And the interesting thing, when we, jobs is one of our components tonight, but even in the job creation, when you talk about these data centers, what you find is that in the construction phase, there's a decent amount of jobs. But once it's created, they're jobs, but these are very high skilled positions. So it's very, there are very specialized people that take on these jobs. So like you said, we have to go and say, listen, is it worth the investment? Are we getting a return that's worth the investment that we're taking on, and more importantly, that our residents are taking on through hikes or having to diminish their resources to make way for this? And then where can the government, the federal government, come in to say, listen, this is a project that you think is going to do X, Y, and Z, and it may, but at what cost to our residents and our citizens? And then how can we put in some sort of protection for them so that they're not getting it? I was doing some research on this, and one of the kind of components that came out, they said that these data centers are among the most energy intensive building types. They consume between 10 to 50 times the amount of energy per floor space of a typical commercial building. Duke
Yeah,
Energy
exactly. So when
is
they're,
is benefiting from this. Other companies are benefiting from this. My question
yeah,
becomes, when do they tap in and sew into it in a way that's going to help our residents who are having to tolerate all of these adjustings and swings with their bill,
yeah,
like you said, having to minimize their resources. So job creation is very important when it comes to the tech positions, and we're in the triangle. That's the heartbeat of the triangle. Is the tech industry. So we need to begin to get greater buy-in from the tech industry to say, okay, and there are different types of legal documents that we can put together, whether they're TIF districts and different things like that, to make it appealing to them, but to also make sure that they are sewing in at a level that is going to leverage out things for our citizens. All of these things, they sound great, they look great on paper, but what is it doing to people's bottom line? And I think COVID was a very good example of how one little shift can destroy a person's bottom line. I mean, families were really thrown back in every possible way, not just financially, educationally, like all of these things hit because we did not have a well-crafted plan to deal with that. With tech, we can create that ahead of a tsunami. And so those are some of the things that we want to look at as the legislature, making sure that all of these entities, whether it's the federal government, whether it's tech businesses themselves, are coming together and putting together a collective plan that works for everyone.
yeah. I would add that the U-Haul data, right? The U-Haul data
Mhm.
doesn't lie.
Yeah,
So consistently, North Carolina has been within the top 4 or 5
yeah,
states. They're going
absolutely.
to Florida, they're going to Georgia, they're going to North Carolina, and that's why it's a great opportunity too, because a lot of people who move from other districts or other states, they bring different ideas,
Right.
and perhaps they could bring their politics with them. So what we have to understand is that, trying to educate people is, if you fled California for North Carolina, but then you bring your politics with you, then that's going to change North
Right.
Carolina, right? And so, what was it? I mean, hundreds of thousands of people
Yeah. So what you fled
since
is what you
2020.
come here and create.
Yeah, what was it? 700,000 people since 2020. I mean, it's just incredible growth in North
Right.
Carolina. So it's an opportunity also, as I was saying before, about making conservatism more accessible,
Hmm.
and working on how we govern,
Yeah.
and the demeanor, the policies, the conservative values, they can all be the same, right?
Yeah.
I think more of it's the delivery and the demeanor in which we approach it with people to make it a little more palatable.
Yeah.
um, and then I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about kind of those heartstring projects, pet projects.
Yeah.
They tug on your heartstrings, but whether it's a green project, whether what conservatives are not against green projects. We want a green project that gives a net benefit to
Right.
citizens,
Right.
right? And so I think we don't want to tug on the heartstrings and then leave people footing the bill.
Exactly.
We need things that
Because of
bring net
course
benefit.
the heartstring is sometimes attached to the purse string. And so
Oh, yeah.
we're delete, it's like, oh, because I care, it shouldn't cost me my life savings to care. At the same time, a politician's passion shouldn't be funded by the people. So if I'm passionate about green, then those should come out of my own personal thing. I should not push that on the electorate who has a greater a greater heart for solid education and public safety and making sure that their dollar is going further in the market. And so we have to make sure that we're focusing on what our constituents want above what our own personal passions or pursuits are. That's not why we seek public office. We seek public office to be a solution for the whole. And sometimes you will find that, oh, others support that same thing that I do as well. but that's not always the case. And so we always have to make sure that we're ruling and that we're operating from a baseline of what is good for my constituents. What do the people want? What is it that the people need? They need solid jobs, but they also need jobs that are going to be accessible without these requirements of such specialized skills that only a small percentage of people can qualify for them. And so when we talk about the tech industry, again, very specialized. You saw my technical issues when we started. I probably could have used a little bit of a hand, but that's the reality. You need these specialized skills. So I'm looking to see us do more in terms of job creation with what the majority of our population will be able to qualify for. I'm looking forward to seeing better job creation programs that help with skills. When we look at the data, I was reviewing some of the data for the Medicaid program and some of the work statuses that are in there. And some people are not getting bona fide work because they don't have skills. If we work with our jobs program to make sure that we are creating things that are not just educationally based, but also the trades, tapping into the trades and helping. And there's a lot of construction going on in North Carolina. You can barely go anywhere without seeing a bunch of folks out there. Let's get people trained for things that are going to help them in their future and to qualify for jobs that are everyday jobs, that are working in everyday things. So we've got to expand workforce development and job training. We've got to strengthen public safety for businesses. That's just bottom line. We saw a lot of this during COVID. It has since curbed, where people would just go in and raid stores and rob stores. Well, what business owner is going to stay in a place where they don't have the assurance that their business is going to be safe, or that their merchandise is going to be safe, or their workers? They're not going to stay in those conditions. So bringing that piece in there is really important so that businesses will stay. People stay where it's safe. Our families will stay when they feel safe.
Yeah.
The passage of Arena's law was beautiful because people were concerned. This is public transportation. How many people in North Carolina use public transportation? That had to create some sort of just, oh my gosh, fear of, that could be me, that could be my daughter, it could be, my mother. So we've got to make sure that public safety is built in, not only for the businesses, but also for the consumers. I'm not going to shop in a community where if I go there beyond 5 o'clock, I might get knocked upside the head. That's just not where I'm going to go. So then that keeps blighted areas blighted. So we've got to look at that and then reduce our dependence on government assistance. We can do that more effectively when people have jobs. Most people don't want to be on public assistance. There's a dignity issue there for people. Like, most people would rather work a good hard-earned job and make good hard-earned money, but they also have to feed their families. And so if we have the training in place to help people get the skills they need, then they're working very hard, but they're working at a job where they can't really earn enough to support their families. And so
I would add one thing to that, because it's almost, it's like a system where you work to a certain point and make a certain amount of money to afford a system where, and if you want to work, you're a hard worker, and then say we'll make $50 more, and now you don't qualify. So now you're to the point where you can't afford to live, but you're an industrious person, you're a hard worker. You're not lazy. So I think we can address that as well in trying to lift people up who are ambitious, who do want to, get off of government assistance. And the other thing I would say in regards to community safety is the poor woman, Zoe Welsh, just, I guess, about a month ago, she worked at Ravenscroft School. And while she was on the phone with 911, she was murdered.
Oh my
God. For the past 5 years, there are many people on the left that fought to defund the police. And it's my position that I don't think we need to defund the police. I think we need, and everybody probably would agree now, that the police need more training, right? They need to have more training so that they treat every situation as professionals, right? That's what we want. We want professional police, and we can only have professional police when they have adequate training. But then the other aspect to that is the person that killed Zoe Welsh went before a judge, and the DA, I don't know much about the DA, but I do know that the DA requested that they be mentally detained for mental health, basically involuntarily committed.
Yeah.
And the judge refused it. So that poor woman would be alive today if we had a judge with a backbone,
Yeah.
a more conservative judge that didn't allow that person off the onto the street. So I think it's you hear from the governor. I know the governor just came out today saying that the first lady's working on rehabilitation, which I think is a great and very admirable.
Yeah, very noble.
Admirable goal, but it also needs to be with the idea and under the premise that certain people should not be allowed on the street, right? We have a mental health crisis, but certain people should not be allowed out of jail for they pose serious harm, other human beings. Right. So I think it takes a balance.
A lot of these people are repeat offenders. So my great concern with how judges are handling things, it's not just frustration, but it's very disheartening because we have, for many of these individuals, a track record of behavior that suggests that them being, this idea of recognizance, when you abuse that, you don't get that. You don't get to be held on your own character when your character has shown that you're going to harm people, that you're going to hurt people. That's putting our citizens in harm's way. It's almost like opening the door and just sitting them on people's front porch steps. And you can't do that. People have children that they don't feel safe letting them in their yards, and you can't play out front so we have an obligation and a responsibility. And judges do as well. And as the legislature, this falls in our lap because we're the ones who create laws. And so we have to create laws that have the appropriate amount of not only restrictions and teeth in it to hold, offenders accountable, but also to hold judges accountable.
Sure.
We've got a lot of work to do, and it's good work. It's going to make us safer. It's going to make us stronger, a stronger North Carolina. I'm excited about the work. I don't mind pushing up my sleeves and putting the work in because you're worth it. Our children are worth it. Our communities are worth it. Being able to live life. The Constitution talks about life and liberty and being able to live in this freedom. And some of that is taken away when we have situations where our streets aren't safe or our public spaces aren't safe. And so when we talk job creation, we want to make sure that public safety component is there. It's critical to making sure that our businesses stay and that they continue to hire. So we've talked a little bit about our taxes, just some of the things that we need to do with that. When we talk about the economy overall, a strong economy, it's the foundation of safe communities, quality education, family stability, rising costs, workforce challenges, and limited job opportunities. They put pressure on families trying to afford affordable housing, trying to afford food and childcare. All of that plays into the dynamic of our economy. North Carolina, we have to pursue policies that lower the cost of living. That is just the reality that we're facing. We have to put in policies that are going to support small businesses, attract responsible investment, and prepare workers for skilled and high-paying jobs. Economic growth should be broad-based, sustainable, and the benefits should impact both rural communities and urban communities. I don't want our urban communities to get left out here. That means sometimes better agricultural initiatives, better farming initiatives, using programs and partnering with the USDA to make sure that our rural communities are sustainable and thriving and just growing as well. Vitality means our entire state is covered. So not just our big cities, but also our rural communities. By focusing on public safety, educational, accountability, and economic stability, we partner those things together because that's how we protect families, That's how we create opportunities in Shore, North Carolina, and our district, District 17, and for Representative District, House District 21, remains a place where people want to live, work, and thrive. One of the things I love about District 17 is that we are an active and engaged district. We are out on the public. You see people all the time at the shopping centers, and just in using our parks, at the theater. People enjoy living here, and we want to make sure that the climate that we're creating is one that is conducive to living that quality life, living an abundant life, living a life that is solid and focused. And so we're really excited about that. When I talk about an economic development plan, for me, those components contain tax restructuring. We've got to find a way to empower families and small businesses. We can't, if we can't support our small businesses, it makes it very difficult for them to create economic opportunities for our citizens. We've got to audit and reduce government waste. A lot of waste in government. And this creates room for responsible income and property tax relief, which are both so necessary. We have to ensure that our tax policy rewards work, investment, entrepreneurships, rather than overburdening families or small businesses. Our families, our small businesses should not be carrying the brunt of all of this. And then we have to use incentives strategically use them to attract responsible investment, benefits that the local economy would then be able to create jobs from. And Bryson and I talked a little bit earlier, for those of you who may just be popping on, about how tech plays a role in that, because tech jobs tend to be very big on the beginning in the construction process. But once the facility is here, those jobs become highly specialized. And once they're highly specialized, then it makes it very difficult for ordinary, regular, everyday Joes to get in those jobs and in those positions. So you go from, having that availability at the beginning to losing that once that is established. I also want to see job creation and workforce development. That's so important, that we're preparing our citizenry for these jobs. We're creating the jobs, but we also want to make sure that at the same time we're creating the infrastructure to fill it. And that's where that job creation and workforce development comes in. And we have great systems in place that do that work already, and it's just insulating them with what they need. Looking for support for our small businesses and our local investors, making sure that we're creating a climate where people with great and ingenious ideas have a space to grow and to do different things and create different spaces within our state. And then also sustainable economic growth. We've got to look at how we align economic development with responsible resource management. This includes energy, water, transportation, infrastructure. All of these things and all of these components are important. Bottom line, economic stability is more than just the growth, the GDP growth. It is strong neighborhoods, it's thriving schools, it's secure families and opportunities for investment, responsible investment. By combining the smart tax policy, the workforce readiness, the responsible investment, North Carolina can grow sustainably. It can grow in a way that allows us to see the boom, but also protect the people who live and work here. And so we're really excited about being able to put together some strategic policy that's really going to benefit us all in the long run. It's so important that our communities work for us just like we work and live for it. We keep it alive with our energy and all that we sow into it. And we just want to make sure that we are doing everything as the legislature to help families, to support families, and to make sure that they have all the things that they need. Bryson, do you want to wrap us up on your thoughts? And you can put them all together if you like: taxes, jobs, and the economy. So just kind of in a nutshell, what you're hoping to see as a legislator, what you're hoping to accomplish, and then also if you can give people how to reach you, how to connect with you.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook, Bryson Johnson. And then my website is brysonfornc.com. I think I would like to share this. It's a flyer that basically says what I won't do. And I think when people start to get involved in politics, they say what they're going to do. But I think just as important is what you won't do. And so basically, what we were talking about before is about bringing forth a different type of leadership, making conservative values more accessible to people. Democrats, you have to hand it to them. They're very good at making your heart feel good, but I don't think they have the monopoly on empathy, right?
Right.
Democrats don't have the monopoly on empathy. It just depends on who you have empathy for. We have empathy for the victims over those who would cause us harm, right?
Right.
So essentially, number one is I won't make villains out of our neighbors. Number two, to blame shift or scapegoat when leadership gets hard. When it comes to, just look at the roadblocks we've had with our Congress in terms of our budgeting. And the Democrats blame it on the Republicans blame it on the Democrats. Nothing gets done. I will not support legislation that makes North Carolinians less safe. I won't pass pet projects that tug at heartstrings but fail to deliver results. That's a big one in regards to our economy and our budget, right? Net benefit for the people. I won't prioritize empathy for criminals over justice for law-abiding citizens. I won't pick and choose which violence matters based on political narratives. If someone gets stabbed on the subway, I don't treat it any differently than if somebody got shot near a Walmart. I think we need to condemn all violence, period, and quit playing games with picking and choosing based on the political narratives. I won't support unnecessary regulations that make everyday life less affordable. I'm not sure about Sydney Batch. Yeah, I'm sure she's very similar to Yalu in terms of Yalu with the NC Chamber scoring a 47%. So that's an F for business, for small business. Yalu is bad for small business. She gets an F. And that's not me saying that. That's the NC Chamber. I won't allow politics and woke ideology to replace academics in our classrooms. When we say woke, right, we live in Wake County, not Woke County.
Right.
But when we say woke, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance in how we govern. I believe in two-way tolerance. I believe that people should be comfortable in their own skin. I think that we should treat everyone universally with respect, but I also believe in two-way tolerance. I don't believe that our kids should be indoctrinated with value systems at school that don't align with the majority of the electorate.
Right.
The Democrat Party has become a 30% party, which means that 70% of people disagree with them. But they take the torch, they take the banner of a 30% issue. So less than a third of people will support certain issues, but they treat it as if they have a mandate. So that's where the problem lies. They've become a 30% party. Number 9 is I won't ignore parents or treat them like obstacles in their child's education. We've made a lot of progress in the assembly on this since COVID, because quite frankly, when parents were working alongside their kids, during COVID, mom's working at home, dad's working at home, kids working in between them. They need help with their homework and everything. And then they listen in and they say, well, what was their teacher saying?
Right.
We have to get back to brass tacks. And then lastly, number 10, I won't back policies that make it harder for small businesses to survive. I won't ever stop fighting for affordability, safer communities, and stronger families. So when we align that all with taxes, the economy, when teachers get raises, hopefully, with our budget coming up, and when we have spending, that spending has to come from somewhere. So you either need to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, or you have to earn more income.
Right.
I think that the GDP for North Carolina has grown since 2020. We're the number 1 state for small business, as we've established hundreds of thousands of net residents in North Carolina. So we don't have an income problem. We have a spending problem. And so we need to prioritize our spending a little bit better. As far as effort is concerned in our education, we're last among the states. I think we're actually 50th for effort, and that's as a percentage of our GDP for education. So I think we can bring that in alignment, support the public schools, and also vouchers. I don't think that there's a one size fits all for everyone.
I absolutely agree.
But also, you know how we fix the public schools? We get teachers that can teach and who have to do less paperwork, less administrative tasks, and who just love to teach, and let them teach. But also bring teachers that aren't all about indoctrination.
Right.
Our
Because
kids
that's
are not
what
your project.
polarizes their parents.
Yeah. Our kids are not
I
your
agree with
project.
you. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and. It's just parents are running away from our public school systems because of the indoctrination, and they just don't want that for their children. At the same time, our public schools are having issues because there are a lot of hiccups that kind of throw monkey wrenches into the whole process. There's 30,000 billion ways to licensure. That's a problem. There should be one clear cut, concise way to licensure. I was looking at some data, and it was talking about in just last year on education, there were something like 400 classrooms that didn't start, that started without an actual teacher, like a licensed teacher. They had a temporary licensed teacher. So again, that path to licensure is problematic. But I also think that public education kind of operates like a monopoly. The school choice system allows for healthy competition, so that people have to compete for your children, for your students, and then they have to educate them because there's someplace else that people can go.
Yeah, think about this. So if you get a voucher for, say, your voucher is $7,000, you're going to have to come up with the remainder for a private school education. So if say the private school is 12, 13,000, you're going to have to come up with a difference, right? So you have you have parents who are actually willing to do that. And I do not believe the argument that all of these parents are rich and wealthy.
No, they want safety.
Yeah, and so they're actually making that sacrifice, when in reality, if we just rein everything in, get back to brass tacks education, reading, writing, arithmetic, logic and reasoning, how we're going to take on the challenges of AI in the future, and teach and prepare our kids for roles and jobs that we don't even know the magnitude or even maybe the subject matter of what they're going to be doing, because things are going to be happening so quickly and dramatically.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, a lot of the jobs that our kids are going to be doing, we don't even know the titles of them yet. I think we need to prepare them for the future, not prepare them to be progressive activists. And you'll fix that problem. You'll fix the problem with the school system, and you have to plug the hole. And by doing that, you just get back to basics.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to basics is definitely the way to go. And it's really the way to go on all of it. If we go back to, there was a system that worked, and until we started working the system for our own personal gain, for our own. So we just got to get back to the basics, get back to, I think someone once said, no politician, any rich politician, somebody got rich being a politician, they're in it for the wrong reasons, because the system is not designed for you to get rich in politics.
Well, I got in trouble for saying politician. And I'm like, let's think about this for a moment. I'm not who made it a bad word in the first place.
Exactly.
Right? So let's try and make the word politician mean something other than self-serving interests and, padding your wallet. Yeah. Let's make that mean something and try and improve the terminology a little bit, and just go from there. It goes back to my whole philosophy. Like, I don't know if I'll be a good politician or not, but I want to try and be a good person. And I think we should start there.
Yeah.
And I think
the human, just plain good old humanity, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'll be a good politician or not, but we'll start with someone who is eager, ambitious, who is motivated, and is really tired of extremes. And let me tell you, I think people it really resonates with them, the
Yeah,
exhaustive
I think
majority.
people are ready to get back to something that resembles, what they've always known America to be, what they've known our state to be. Listen, Bryson, we have got to get going. Thank you so much for joining us. This has
That
been
was
so
awesome.
fruitful. We will post this. Once we wrap up the live, I'll actually post the video. I'll tag you in it, so it'll go to your page as well. Feel free to share it. This is helping people understand who we are and why we're doing what we're doing, and how it's going to benefit them. So next week, everyone listening, next week we're going to hit education. I know that's a big one for you guys. We're going to hit education, and we're going to do education by itself because it's that big. I really think I want you all to have the time to ask the questions and to delve into it. Bryson, you're always welcome. Same thing as today. You just hop on and I'll send you that link and you can chime in as well. Every Monday from 7 until 8 p.m. we will be doing these Ask Shirley's or Ask Your District. We'll expand it so we can include Bryson in there. But he is House District 21. So if you are in House District 21, definitely take a look at his website, at his Facebook, interact. He loves to share his heart. And I do truly believe he's going to do a fantastic job for you. So look him up, connect with him, invite him to your clubs, let people that know him, because it's going to be very beneficial for our overall Senate district, which is including HD 21, but also for your House district. We thank you all for joining us, and you all have a great night. Bryson, again, thank you so much. I know this takes a lot of time out of your schedule.
Oh, wow, that was
Appreciate
fun.
it. And like I said, I'll get that posted for you in just a little bit here and get you tagged in it so you'll have it.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.